If July was about the freedom that money can create, August is about what it takes to get there. If you missed last week's videos and the theme, check it out on the YouTube page or let Rebecca know, she'll direct you there. The challenge for most people is not understanding what they want. Most people want greater freedom, flexibility, options, and control over their time. The challenge is staying committed long enough for thoughtful decisions to compound into meaningful results. August explores a reality that every successful investor, planner, business owner, and professional eventually encounters. Progress is often happening long before it becomes visible. This month, we're going to begin by examining our discomfort with quiet periods. And then we'll explore our natural urge to interfere with things that are working. And the importance of trusting a process that has been carefully built. And finally, the reality that financial planning is designed to support real life, not perfect life. Throughout the month, the common thread is simple. The best outcomes are often created by ordinary decisions repeated consistently over time. Happy Friday, everybody. Today is August 7th, 2026, and this is your Friday planning video. A few weeks ago, a client called the office and asked if we could get together. Nothing unusual about that. We scheduled a time, sat down, and started catching up. After a few minutes, I asked him what was on his mind. He looked at me for a second, then said something I wasn't expecting. He said, honestly, I think the reason I wanted this meeting was because nothing's happening. We both laughed, but as the conversation continued, it became clear that he wasn't really joking. Normally, when someone calls for a meeting, there's a reason. Something's changed, there's a decision to make, a concern has come up, a goal has shifted. Life has a way of presenting us with things that need our attention. This time, there wasn't any of that. His retirement plan was on track, his investments were doing what they were supposed to do, his family situation hadn't changed, his goals hadn't changed. In fact, the more we talked, the more obvious it became that things were actually going pretty well. And yet, that was exactly what felt strange to him. After the meeting ended, I found myself thinking more about that conversation on the drive home. The funny thing is that I understood exactly what he meant. I think most of us are conditioned to believe that progress should feel like something. If we're exercising, we want to see results. If we're working hard, we want to see results. If we're saving money, we want to see results. We want evidence that something's happening. When we don't see that evidence, we start wondering if we're doing enough. The more I thought about it, though, the more it reminded me of another conversation I had years ago. At the time, I was meeting with a client who was getting close to retirement. We had worked together for a long time. He had saved consistently, made thoughtful decisions, and avoided a lot of the mistakes that get people into trouble. One day during a review meeting, he looked at me and he said, this whole thing is kind of boring. I laughed because I knew exactly what he meant. There weren't any dramatic decisions to make. There wasn't some exciting strategy we were implementing. There wasn't a major problem we were trying to solve. The plan was simply doing what it was supposed to do. At the time, I made a joke and I told him that boring was underrated. But over the years, I've come to think that there was actually a lot of truth to that statement. Some of the best things in life are surprisingly uneventful while they're happening. Strong marriage doesn't usually become a strong marriage because one extraordinary day. Becomes strong because of thousands of ordinary days. You don't wake up one morning and suddenly realize you've built a great relationship. It happens conversation by conversation, year by year, often without you noticing it. Financial planning has always struck me as being somewhat similar. Most people imagine progress will feel dramatic. Instead, what usually happens is that life goes on. You raise a family, you go to work, you take vacations, you celebrate birthdays, you deal with challenges. And somewhere in that background, you've been making good decisions, progress quietly accumulates. Then one day, you look back and you realize how much has changed. I was reminded of that recently when I came across an old financial plan from a client review many years ago. As I looked through it, I started to think about where that client was then and where they are today. At the time, retirement felt far away. College expenses were still ahead. There were questions about cash flow and long-term goals. Nothing was perfect. Nothing was fully solved, but they kept moving forward. Year after year, decision after decision, review after review. And today their situation looks completely different. Not because of one brilliant move, not because of one extraordinary year, but because they stayed with the process long enough for the process to work. I think that's one of the hardest things for people to appreciate while they're in the middle of it. When you're living something day by day, progress can be difficult to see. You don't notice children growing because you see them every day. You don't notice a business evolving because you're inside of it every day. You don't notice financial progress because you're living through it 1 month at a time. Then one day you look back and you realize how far you've actually come. That's why that first client's comment stayed with me. I think the reason I wanted this meeting was because nothing is happening. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that sometimes nothing happened is exactly what you're hoping for. Sometimes the absence of drama means the plan is working. Sometimes the absence of urgency means the foundation is solid. Sometimes the reason there isn't a problem to solve is because years ago you took the time to build a process designed to handle problems before they became crises. Last month, we spent a lot of time talking about freedom. We talked about independence, choices, flexibility, time, and the forms of wealth that matter most. This month, I want to spend some time talking about what it takes to get there, because those things don't usually come from one great decision. More often, they come from years of ordinary decisions that don't feel very exciting while you're making them. And maybe that's the lesson that stayed with me from that meeting. Not every quiet period needs to be interrupted. Not every moment requires action, and not every plan needs to feel exciting about to be working. Sometimes boring is exactly what success looks like while it's happening. If you'd like to talk about whether your financial plan is still aligned with your goals and whether that process you're following continues to make sense, I'm happy to have that conversation. For now, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.